SuperTalk Mississippi media production.
Recovery is a team sport, and Parkwood Behavioral Health System can help you get back in the game of life and break free from addiction. Visit parkwoodbhs.com. Parkwood, your recovery team for life's biggest wins. With limited exceptions, physicians are not employees or agents of this facility.
This is Gerard Gibert, and thank you for listening to MidDays here on SuperTalk Mississippi.
MidDays with Gerard Gibert is on the air. MidDays with Gerard Gibert is powered by C-Spire. Power your home or business with C-Spire Fiber. To learn more, visit supertalk.fm/C-Spire. C-Spire Fiber powers SuperTalk Mississippi. Get ready to go beyond the headlines and join a meaningful conversation with people from around the state. Hello. You're listening to MidDays with Gerard Gibert here on SuperTalk Mississippi.
Good morning, everyone, and welcome to MidDays, SuperTalk Mississippi. I'm your host, Gerard Gibert, along with Rhino in the Element Wealth Studio, guiding you through the middle of your day with facts, fodder, and fine music on this
Hump Day.
And the hump day before Thanksgiving, we should add.
Turkey Day Eve.
Well, you know, there might be a few things you want to avoid talking about on Thanksgiving Day. A new survey of 2,000 adults 21 and older found that the generations can all agree that some topics don't have a seat at the table. And those would be politics, 42%. Good grief. What are we going to do with a day during the middle of the week we don't talk politics? You and I, at least, huh?
It'll be a blessing.
Okay, finances, 28%. Appearance or weight, 28%. By the way, the president referred to the...
Unless you're talking about the turkey.
Oh, that's true.
You want a heavy turkey and you want it to look good.
I love it. The president referred to the governor of Illinois, Pritzker, as a fat slob. God, dog. Okay, religion, spiritual beliefs, previous romantic relationships. I guess I never thought about that.
How's your ex doing? I can see how that would be an awkward conversation.
At a minimum. Mental health. Huh.
Still crazy?
Work career. Okay. The questions like, according to the survey, how's your diet going? You're supposed to ask that right as you're about to insert that fork in your mouth that's loaded up with Thanksgiving fare, correct?
Oh, yeah.
Or, who did you vote for in the last election? This is my favorite. At the Thanksgiving table, can I borrow some money? Oh, that's just great. Those were among the most commonly cited conversation culprits. A little alliteration there for you. Oh, man. So don't talk about that stuff. Right. Fat chance, as they say, huh? Yeah. I don't know. What do you talk about at Thanksgiving? You staying here? You going to Tupelo?
Oh, I'll be making the trip up to Tupelo to spend some time with the family, and then turn right back around, come on back down.
There you go. What do you talk about?
Usually it's catching up.
Yeah. That's kind of what we do.
I'm only up there maybe a handful of times out of the year.
Yeah. I hear you. So that makes sense. You see your family because you're not around them every day. You don't carry on conversation. So when you get around the table, sure, that makes perfect sense to me.
Get caught up on what they're doing, what they've been up to, what the world's been like in that neck of the woods, all that good stuff.
I think that makes perfect sense. Well,
somebody on the C-Spire text line from the 662. Still crazy after all these years.
That's right. Oh, gosh. That'd be a fascinating conversation opener, wouldn't it? I like that. Still crazy after all these years. That's pretty cool. Well, Americans are prepared to spend $1 trillion this holiday shopping season. That, according to some polls and some reports, and it's what the National Retail Federation, Vice President of Industry and Consumer Insights, Catherine Cullen, said, quote, as a record number of shoppers are expected this Thanksgiving weekend, retailers are prepared to meet the needs of consumers with great value and convenience. Well, of course, we would expect the person with the National Retail Federation to say that. But it's upon us. They are predicting that retail sales in November and December will grow between 3.7% and 4.2% above 2024. Of course, you have to wonder how much of that is just the result of inflation. Just the normal inflation we've had that's been hanging around that 3% mark for a year since last year would account for some of that, unless those are inflation-adjusted numbers, and it doesn't indicate that that is the case. Now, 24 over 23 saw a 4.3% increase. So if that is inflation-adjusted, which I don't believe it is, that would seem to conflict with the recent reports that consumer sentiment is very low, that the consumer doesn't feel good about their situation. And thus you would think they would kind of temper their holiday spending. But we shall certainly see what's going on there. What else we got going on? A whole bunch of stuff. The embrace of the president of Zoran Mondani, that's kind of complicating the path to governor for Elise Stefanik. She, of course, is a candidate for governor. I don't know that she's officially announced. She's currently a representative in the U.S. House representing a Republican district in New York, around New York City there. She is kind of looking at an uphill gubernatorial bid in a deep blue state, running against the Democratic governor, the current governor, Kathy Hochul, whom she describes as the nation's worst chief executive. Ties Hochul to Mondani, but that may be a little dicey given that the president seems to at least be more positive about Mondani than he was on the campaign, having met him in the Oval Office a few days ago. Now, I got to report this about Mondani. He's got his transition team to transition into...
That he had to ask for donations to
fund
money to fund it.
That's Gracie's Mansion, I think, right, is where Gracie Mansion, I think is what it's called, where the mayor of the city of New York resides. So his transition into the mansion there. His committee's total team, 400. You got to have 400 people to transition into the mayor's office? 400. I don't know how many, like 32 committees or some insane number of committees. One of those, this caught my eye above all the others. Of course, he's already got this community safety committee, and I think he's put some hardcore defund the police zealot in charge of that. It's got a history of radical views with respect to law enforcement, That makes you feel good about the future of the safety of America's largest city. But this is the one that caught my attention. There's one called worker justice. Now, does that not just sound like it's something that Karl Marx himself could create? Worker justice. Are they going to adopt the hammer and sickle as their logo for that committee? Worker justice. What the heck is that? It really does. Just red lights go off. Communism. That's what it sounds like to me. That we're literally talking about the proletariat versus the Politburo here. Is what it sounded like. That just kind of bothered me. Also, here at home, Scott Colomb, you know who he is. He's running for the United States Senate, taking on the incumbent Republican Senator Cindy Hyde-Smith in 2026. We got to tell you what he's proposing as a way to address the health insurance crisis, if you could call it that. Certainly from a pricing perspective, it's a crisis in this country. That's on the other side of the break. We've got Mike Murphy coming on. He's the executive director of the Committee for a Responsible Federal Budget at 11:05. Stay with us. This segment of Middays with Gerard Gibert is brought to you by Covington County Hospital in Collins, where your health matters.
Happy Thanksgiving from our family to yours. Middays with Gerard on SuperTalk Mississippi.
We don't need no thought control.
Welcome back, everyone. It is Middays from the Element Wealth Studio. So, the candidate for U.S. Senate in Mississippi as a Democrat, Scott Colomb, he spoke a couple of days ago at locally here at Shady Grove Baptist Church, and he talked extensively about federal cuts to Medicaid and how he believes those cuts will adversely impact Mississippians. He said that the Trump administration hopes people will become frustrated about being buried in paperwork and will not seek coverage. Quote, what will happen is people will go without health care, said Mr. Colomb, when they go to the hospital, because ultimately things go wrong and those hospitals are not going to be compensated. They're going to lose money. This will lead to the closure of some hospitals in Mississippi. Quote, we have to cancel the health care cuts. We have to raise 3% on people making more than $600,000 a year to pay for Mississippians to continue to have health insurance and to save our hospitals. So that, of course, right out of the Democrat playbook. Let's just go tap the assets and the income of society's most economically successful to pay for a whole bunch of other people. It is just classic redistribution, classic welfare, classic division along economic status lines consistent with the tenets of Karl Marx himself. And, of course, It's totally misguided. And it further divides, in my view, the nation into two classes. From a tax perspective, the producer class, the contributor class, and the recipient class. Now that, too, of course, is consistent with the ideals of Marxism. Let's just divide people up. Make them mad at each other. The chaos is good for Marxism. Oh, they'll come crying to government, right? And naturally, the people would confer more power to government to address this issue. Now, it's insane that these people they're terrible at math, as we established so many times, but they don't recognize the fact that the high-income earners in this country pay a higher effective tax rate already, and they account for the vast majority of the income tax revenue collected by the federal government. There's nothing new about that. The top 1% have an effective tax rate of 26.1%. The bottom 50% have an effective rate of 3.7%. So every time you see folks like Mr. Colomb and the Democrats in general with this tired, wrong, inaccurate talking point, Joe Biden must have said it 1,000 times before and after he was elected. It's just not fair that a billionaire pays a lower effective tax rate than the teacher and the firefighter and the police officer. Right. And it doesn't happen, Joe, because, keep in mind, this is some of that fuzzy math. What they do is consider all of their paper gains as income and then apply the effective tax rate. But in this country, we don't tax unrecognized gains. If today you buy a stock for $1 and tomorrow it's $1.50, that'd be a huge run-up in one day, of course. The gain on paper is not taxed. Now, let's be honest. That's what they want to do. They want to tax unrealized gains. Kamala Harris included that as part of her economic and tax policy platform, was the taxing of unrealized gains. And I know, Rhino, this is second-order thinking. And while on the surface, those who want more revenue and want to shake down the wealthy think that would generate more revenue, the reality is that such a policy, I believe, would crash the whole dang economy. If you started telling people who make investments in these companies, which guess what they use that for? Pay salaries, hire people, buy stuff to run a business, construct new facilities. That's what stockholders provide capital for. They believe, hey, companies, CEOs, management, I'm going to give you some money. I'm going to buy some stock. If you go invest this properly and grow your company and thus your bottom line, I'm going to get a return on that because the stock price is, I know, this is second-order thinking that's way above the head of the average bureaucrat.
To a certain extent, but I would argue that the first order of understanding doesn't even fall on loser leftists and Democrats. They don't understand that when you buy a stock, you are investing your money into the success of that company. They look at stocks as rich people gambling.
That's true. That's a good point. And
they have no concept of what happens in the transaction, what the purpose of the transaction is, or how any of it works.
So I totally agree. Or they look at it, it's just a vehicle for the rich people to get richer, right? It's what they look at it. Not thinking about the fact, not able to understand, it's they're risking their money, their personal assets, their personal wealth, believing in the company. That's why you do it. And the company is motivated to make good decisions. And that includes treating people right and paying them right. A market wage, not some government dictated wage, and pricing their goods and services at a price the market will appreciate and purchase, and making sure that those goods or services deliver value to the market. I know this is Econ 101, man. This is capitalism 101 is what it is. And the market's ability to mediate, if you will, all of those dynamics is far superior to the people in Washington making laws to do that.
That there's an uncomfortable truth that no one on the left will acknowledge. In fact, they act like it's not even real. Capitalism does not work for the lazy.
100%. You're getting left behind, not because the rich people are getting richer, because they've leveraged the system that we all have, we're all availed to. They just refuse to participate. No, you just got to give it to me. When I see stuff like this from Cologne, we just got to take it from these people and give it to these people, rather than trying to devise solutions that lift up those people who need, according to him, who need the financial assistance from those who are producing and contributing and generating the vast majority of the revenue that the federal government then turns around and puts out the door. So this is a bad idea. And the other thing about this cuts to Medicaid, that's a bit disingenuous, and here's why. Requiring people to check in more than once a year, in this case, under the new law, twice a year, eligibility renewals, which, by the way, don't even go into effect until 2027. That's not cutting Medicaid. That's not cuts to Medicaid.
And it's not burying people under mountains of paperwork. Either.
Right, exactly. So I will say this, that one of the provisions with respect to Medicaid in the One Big Beautiful Bill Act, it just excludes certain classes of legal immigrants from participating in the program. They call that cuts to Medicaid. They should be grateful that any legal immigrants get access to Medicaid. And you know what? If they could go home. Go home. Get your health care at home, right? Or, better yet, become a citizen. Go through the proper process. And if our system sees fit to grant you the privilege of American citizenship and you qualify, then you enroll. That's not cuts to Medicaid. There hasn't been any cuts to Medicaid. We're just reforming the eligibility requirements to make sure.
You can't expect a Democrat to A, understand reality, and B, avoid lying.
Coming right back.
From the podcasts, the Governor's Mansion to your Thanksgiving table, we've got the stories worth discussing. Back to Middays with Gerard on SuperTalk, Mississippi.
All right, fellow babies, and now it's time to go to our live remote man on the scene at the Pinedale Shopping Mall for the big turkey giveaway. So, take it away, Les Nessman.
This is Les Nessman, your man on the scene here at the Pinedale Shopping Center, where the excitement is mounting. We're here to witness the big WKRP Turkey Thanksgiving giveaway.
I'm here with hundreds of people who have gathered to witness what has been described as perhaps the greatest turkey event in Thanksgiving Day history. All we know for sure is
That in a very few moments, there are going to be a lot of happy people out here. And now the crowd is... The crowd is curious, but well behaved. And I think I hear something now. Oh yes, I can see it now. It's a helicopter, and it's coming this way. The copter seems to be circling the parking area now. I guess it's looking for a place to land. No, something just came out of the back of the helicopter. It's a dark object, perhaps a skydiver plummeting to the earth from only 2,000 feet into the air. The third. There's no parachutes yet.
those can't be skydivers. I can't tell just yet what they are, but... Oh, my God, they're turkeys! Oh, Johnny, can you get this? Oh, they're crashing to the earth right in front of our eyes! One just went through the windshield of a parked car! Johnny, this is terrible.
Cars running around, pushing each other. Oh, my goodness. Oh, the humanity. People are running about. The turkeys are hitting the ground like sacks of wet cement. See folks
I don't know how much longer the crowd is running for their lives. Children are searching for their mothers, and not since the Hindenburg tragedy has there been anything like this. I don't know how much longer I can hold my position here, Johnny. The crowd.
Les, are you there? Les isn't there. Thanks for that on-the-spot report, Les. For those of you who just tuned in, the Pinedale Shopping Mall has just been bombed with live turkey. Film at 11.
As God is my witness, I thought turkeys could fly.
That was for you, Representative Price Wallace. My friend Bill Billingsley sent me a text right on cue. Yeah, as God is my witness, I thought turkeys could fly. That's arguably the most famous quote from the turkey drop scene that Rhino just played. Oh, man, that's really good. Turkeys away. That, of course, as God is my witness, I thought turkeys could fly. That quote delivered by the WKRP station manager, Arthur Carlson, right at the end of the show. That's awesome.
They're hitting the ground like sacks of wet cement.
I don't know. That's pretty creative. Don't know how they came up with that. Oh, yeah. Appreciate you reminding us of that there, Representative Wallace. That's pretty good, my buddy, Bill Billingsley. Good stuff. Thank you for that, Rhino. So we're just talking about this the Senate race with the Democrat candidate Scott Colomb in Mississippi that is taking on the incumbent Republican Senator Cindy Hyde-Smith and calling for raising taxes to provide health insurance because of the cuts to Medicaid, except he's wrong. Now, there are two other provisions I wanted to share about the reforms to the Medicaid program enacted in the One Big Beautiful Bill Act. One of those has to do with illegals receiving health care insurance. Can't really technically call it Medicaid because illegals, despite what is widely believed, are not and have never been eligible to enroll in the Medicaid program. Do they slip through? Absolutely. We've talked about that many times. Two reasons that happens, maybe three. One is they engage in deceptive practices about their identity. That's one. One is we have really terrible systems, information systems, that are used to determine eligibility, including ensuring that someone is a citizen and they meet the income eligibility requirements. And three, as Rhino likes to say all the time, because the people, generally speaking, and we don't want to ascribe this moniker to all of them, but it's not my problem people. It takes a little gumption, little effort, little elbow grease sometimes to determine that someone is legitimately eligible for these benefits. Right? So, yeah, they slip through. But in general, illegals have never been. And there's nothing in the One Big Beautiful Bill Act that, unfortunately, I think is celebrated by Republicans is that, look, we're keeping illegals from getting Medicaid. No, you didn't really change the law. That's always been the case. However, there are numerous states, California, Washington, Illinois, I think Colorado, that have these separate health insurance programs that are totally funded by state money for illegals. And what the Big Beautiful Bill Act did to discourage them from operating such programs is it reduces the federal match for the able-bodied coverage group, that would be American citizens enrolled in Medicaid, from the 90%, which was put in law in 2010 when the Affordable Care Act passed, when the Medicaid was expanded. You hear that around the place all the time. Mississippi, of course, has not expanded. But they reduced that federal cost match from 90% to 80% as a way to discourage California and New York and Illinois and the like from funding out of their own state money health care for illegals. That's what the One Big Beautiful Bill Act did. The second thing it did vis-a-vis illegals. Right now, if an illegal shows up in the ER at an American hospital that participates in Medicare, which is virtually all of them, if they show up, they're going to get treated, even though they're illegal. That, in accordance with the Emergency Medical Treatment and Labor Act, passed into law in 1986, signed into law by Ronald Reagan, basically says, hey, ERs, if you want to keep in the Medicare program, which they all do, then you got to treat everybody that comes in. You got to stabilize them. And labor's included because that's typically an urgent situation. When you show up in the ER and you're in labor, you got to address that.
That's why you have basically a whole cottage industry in Southeast Asia for mainly Chinese nationals who are far too pregnant to be safely flying by Western standards, flying to the U.S. to have their baby.
Totally right, because they know
they can show up to the hospital, not pay a dime. The baby has an American passport, and they get to go home.
So-called anchor babies. 100% right. And they're going to get world-class medical care that they probably couldn't receive in their country of origin, in their native country. So we take them all, and we're going to treat them, and we're going to stabilize them, and hopefully release them. Sometimes there's some rules around that as well. If they don't have a stable home to go to, for example, a roof over their head, they just won't let them out. But here's what the Big Beautiful Bill Act did. Right now, hospitals under the Emergency Medicaid program are reimbursed for such services delivered to illegals at a rate of 90% of the total Medicaid cost, according to the Medicaid catalog, if you will, of, okay, this is how much you pay for a live childbirth, with all the other trimmings that go along with a live childbirth. Just like in commercial insurance, there are published amounts that are paid to hospitals under Medicaid, under Medicare, for delivery of such services. The federal government covers 90% of that. 90%. What the Big Beautiful Bill Act did is, for illegals, it reduced it to the state's standard federal match. So in Mississippi, for example, the federal match is 77%. Our Medicaid program is paid for in the amount of 77% of the Medicaid reimbursement for healthcare services by the federal government. The state's on the hook for the other 23. The highest federal match in the country, because it's based on per capita income, and we have the lowest. Thus, we get the highest federal match. States like California, I think last time I checked, Rhino, it's in the 56 to 60%. Federal law says it can't fall below 50%. So the higher your per capita income is, the lower is your federal contribution to the Medicaid service. All the Big Beautiful Bill Act did is say, okay, when you're taking care of the illegals, rather than sending you 90%, we're only going to send you your standard FMAP, your standard federal match. So, but let me reiterate, Rhino, that's not a cut to Medicaid. That's a cut to the amount you receive from the federal government. That's not precluding them from getting health care. Coming right back in the Element Well studio.
At Key Constructors,
whether you're grateful for freedom of speech or that last piece of pecan pie, happy Thanksgiving.
Happy Thanksgiving! Almost time
for turkey sandwiches.
Middays with Gerard on SuperTalk Mississippi.
Roxanne, you don't have to put on the red light. Those days are over. You don't have to sell your body to the night. Roxanne, you don't have to wear that dress tonight. Walk the streets for money. You don't care if it's wrong or if it's right. Roxanne.
Welcome back, everyone. It's Middays from the Element Wealth Studio. Tim and McGee asks, well, if they tax the gains, what about when they drop? Yeah, that's the common question, Tim, about this idea that Democrats have supported for some time, which is taxing unrealized gains. You bought a security, could be stocks, bonds, any other assets, and the value of those assets is increased since you acquired the asset, but you haven't disposed of it, you haven't sold it, you haven't liquidated. Thus, you've realized zero gain, and you don't have any cash to show for it either because you haven't sold it, haven't liquidated it. So the Democrats want to tax it, just what has occurred on paper, if you will, just any changes to the positive. Right. They never have addressed, however, Tim, what to do if the opposite occurs. You buy some security, and but between the time you buy it and tax day, it drops in value. Thus, you've got a loss. Unrealized loss. Should you be required to pay taxes on that or receive a rebate on that? Yeah, it's a mess. That's why it never works. And in countries that have attempted this, ultimately they've yanked it. They've discontinued the process because, first, it's impossible to administer. Impossible. And second, it just doesn't accomplish anything except discourages investment and the deployment of capital, which is what companies need to grow their businesses and hire people and make investments. Again, I know the old third order thinking. All they know is you got more than they do, you give some to them. That's pretty much where it ends. That's all they understand about that. And that's sad because these are people who are making loss in our country. Something else that I wanted to pass on. I've been communicating with one of my close friends, also a golf buddy, who is just retired from practicing as a CPA for many years and specializes in taxation. And it just hit me, Rhino. We've got these retroactive policies in the One Big Beautiful Bill Act concerning tips and overtime, in particular, that affect people. And then you've got the temporary increase in the standard deduction for seniors. And again, you've got to meet certain income eligibility requirements. And these, by the way, are deductions from gross income. It's a little different than I think is popularly believed. So, for example, with respect to tip income, if you're, I don't remember what the thresholds are, like $125,000 and $150,000, I believe, for an individual and a married filing joint taxpayer household. If your income's below that, then you get to deduct your tip income up to what, $12,000, I think, for an individual, and $25,000. You're looking that up for a
it's $12,500 individual, $25,000.
Yeah,
no,
for married,
up to $25,000 annually.
Okay, it's different. I think the overtime has got a different threshold cap for single and married, but it's right annually, $25,000, right?
Single filers, the phase out begins at $150,000 modified adjusted gross income. Married filing jointly is $300,000.
Okay. So I missed it a little bit.
You must still report all tips of $20 or more a month to your employer, and the maximum amount you can deduct from your taxable income is $25,000 in qualified tips per year.
Gotcha. So if you're an individual making less than $150,000, or you're filing a joint return less than $300,000 joint income, your tip income at $25,000 or below is deducted from your gross income that you put at the very top of your tax return, if you will, before you calculate your adjusted gross income. It's called adjusted because you're adjusting the top line gross income with these various they're called above the line deductions, meaning you don't have to itemize. So right, you up to $25,000. So where I'm going with this is that's retroactive to January 1, 2025. Those provisions are. What I'm not clear about is how your state income tax treats that, right? Because that's different. And I'm talking to my CPA buddy, and he's talking to his CPA colleagues about what does this mean from a state income tax perspective? Would you also be able to reduce your gross income for state tax purposes by the amount up to this $25,000 for tips, for example, if you meet the income eligibility requirements? Not sure, honestly. Kind of stumped him a little bit this morning when I asked. But I'm not sure if that requires law passed by our legislature. That's what they're checking out. I just want to pass on that it's in flux. Coming right back after the news.
Hour of Middays with Gerard Gibert is brought to you by the Mississippi Business Journal. Visit msbusinessjournal.com. Scott Coopwood, publisher and president.
And now, another hour of the talk that keeps Mississippi talking. Middays with Gerard Gibert.
Begin your transition now.
Now on SuperTalk Mississippi.
Welcome back, everyone. It's hour 2 of Middays. We are live from the Element Wealth Studio on this
Hump Day.
We're pleased to welcome now Mike Murphy, Executive Director of the Committee for a Responsible Federal Budget. Hey, Mike, good to see you. Thanks for coming on. Check your mute there, Mike.
Gerard, good to see you.
Yeah, man.
Thank you very much for having me.
Absolutely. Appreciate you coming on. So we wanted to talk to you today about the Social Security program. That's something that, honestly, I don't believe gets the amount of attention it should, because we're just not that far away from the program essentially becoming insolvent from the perspective that it will not be able to satisfy fully its obligations. That has been easily projected by analysts and actuaries, and the People Respond Trust Fund has published it, et cetera. But there just doesn't seem to be any will on the part of Congress to take any action to avoid what would be a catastrophe. And I guess, Mike, and this is, I think, what you guys wrote about, that their plan is, well, we're just going to go borrow money and make up the shortfall. Aren't we doing enough of that when we're running $2 trillion a year deficits and we're sitting on $38 trillion of debt? You guys say, and I agree, this would be not only extremely costly, but it's not really a viable option, and certainly it's not the way we should address this problem. So I'll shut up and let you tell us about that.
Well, thanks, Gerard, for focusing attention on, obviously, yes, what we think is a really important issue. Let's remind folks, Social Security is an incredibly vital program for a lot of people, right? We can start with that. It provides benefits to about 70 million Americans. So it's a hugely important program in terms of, it's also important in terms of the federal budget. It is the largest program in the federal budget as a result of that. But as you said, and as others have said for years, it's projected to go insolvent. It is going to go insolvent in 7 years based on the latest estimates. That is not that far away, actually. That is when today's 60-year-olds reach the normal retirement age for Social Security.
Yeah.
So it's not that far away. And what happens upon insolvency, Gerard, is by law, the program can only pay out what it gets in revenues in a given year. So that we estimate that the result of that would be it would have to cut across the board for everybody on the program at insolvency about 24%. That equates to about an $18,000 cut for the average two-earner typical couple retiring at that time. So this is serious, and you alluded to the analysis we did recently. No one is talking about what to do about this, as you pointed out. And our fear is one of the reasons they're not, is they assume when we get to that moment, Congress is never going to let that happen. They're not going to let those cuts happen.
Sure.
So let's just borrow from the general fund to patch this for a little while. And as you rightly pointed out, the result of that would be trillions more in borrowing than we can ill afford at this time.
Well, aren't we already in a condition now, Mike, where for years, of course, we had revenues, which are essentially payments into the fund in the form of payroll withholdings. I mean, everybody that works, right, has to pay into the fund. Even self-employed people, they have to pay both sides, the employer and the employee side. That goes into the fund, and it goes right out the door to pay for benefits. But for years, we had an excess of revenue over the payments out, benefits being paid out. And the problem is, as you know, that our law restricts the Social Security program on what it can invest that excess in. And that's limited to these special issue bonds that really don't pay a whole lot, but they're guaranteed by the federal government, so it's very, very, very low risk. But we're at a point now, are we not, Mike, that our benefit payments going out exceed the income coming in from contributions, and thus we're depleting the reserves, the trust fund, which is why we're on this trajectory. It was always there as a cushion to help in the times when, okay, we've got a downturn in the economy, for example. People aren't working and employed. They're not paying in. We're paying more out. We got to draw money out of the trust fund. But now we got low unemployment. We got wages rising. I don't see any end in that situation, that scenario where revenues are not going to be able to keep pace with expenses. Thus, the trust fund's going to be out of here, and the solution is, well, let's just borrow money in 7 years to make up for that.
Yeah, you're raising several important points there. So first, you're absolutely correct. It's running a cash flow deficit. It's been running a cash flow deficit, the program, for several years. Prior to 2010, let me back up. Back in the 80s is the last time we actually patched Social Security because it was dealing with an insolvency crisis then. They patched it, and even at that time, they knew it was not going to be a permanent. And it ended up, projected-wise, being pretty right. They knew it was going to last till around the early 2030s, what they did in the 1980s. But then they patched it, and they were running surpluses in the program for a little while. But then in 2010, they began to start running cash deficits where benefits going out were exceeding the revenues coming in. Now, they've been able to rely on, quote, reserves, right? But really what that means is largely an accounting mechanism, because when they were running surpluses, as I think you know, Gerard, what was going on there is that they were borrowing the funds from the Social Security fund to basically make the overall federal deficit look lower than it otherwise would be.
Yeah.
Okay? By these special issue bonds. But now, yes, now they're dipping in, they're depleting the reserves, but they're able to last on those until 2032 when it goes insolvent.
Yeah.
So that's exactly right. Now, what's the big drivers of this too? We have to remember, the big drivers of this is it's demographics, and it's kind of basic math. We are an aging society, and we just haven't adjusted the program to make sure we're accounting for that. Back shortly after Social Security was created, there were 16 people working for every one person on the program. That went down to 3 to 1 as a result of changes in fertility rates and baby boom population, et cetera. That went down to 3 to 1 in 2009. It's going to go down to 2 to 1 in the decades it comes. That's the math. And we just haven't adjusted the program as a result.
5 to 1 in the late 60s, early 70s, as I recall, Mike. And I've actually seen reports that when the program was created in 1935, I've seen some that estimated it more like 40 to 1 at that point. We also had, as you know, life expectancy was around 60 years old when the program was created. And the original premise of the program was to avoid poverty on the outside chance you happen to live to be 65. That's really how it was created.
It's exactly right. As a popular stat people cite, that actually it's the case that right around when it was created, the life expectancy was 64, and the normal retirement age was 65.
Yeah.
Right? And then now life expectancy has gone to 79,
right.
and the retirement age is 67. So,
right.
I mean, that's kind of the point.
Yeah.
Right. And so we have to adjust this for the realities. There are plenty of reforms that can be done to change the structure of this, that bring in more revenues, that adjust benefits prospectively, that protect the most vulnerable and the poorest that it's intended to serve. There's plenty of ideas out there. We just got to get on it and get past the politics of this, where people are just sticking to the notion of we're not touching Social Security because it's the quintessential third rail in American politics.
And let's talk about that, Mike, because that's pretty much the refrain you get from elected leaders in Washington. Oh, let's don't touch the third rail here because that will. I just mentioned it. It almost guarantees it'll be used against me. They want to end Social Security. No, we're trying to save it. Is the reality. The problem, Mike, as I see it, we have the same issue with Mississippi Public Employees Retirement System. We have a $26 billion unfunded liability here. It's the fourth most insolvent state retirement system in America, Mississippi PERS. It's gotten a lot of attention the last couple of years. But all the solutions, Mike, cause pain. Somebody's going to endure pain. That's why I don't, and politicians don't like to impose pain on anyone because it's a good way to lose a race for office. Let's talk about that. So the Democrats, their solution is let's scrap the cap. There are numerous bills just to end what is it now, $175,000 plus dollars. Anything above that in terms of taxable wages, you don't pay Social Security on. They want to do that, but even that is kind of a short-term fix, but it doesn't fix it permanently. Mike, we got a break right here. If you can hang around, let's keep talking about this on the other side. Great.
Sure thing.
Mike Murphy, Executive Director for the Committee for a Responsible Federal Budget. We're coming right back.
Governor's Mansion to your Thanksgiving table, we've got the stories worth discussing. Back to Middays with Gerard on SuperTalk, Mississippi.
Welcome back, everyone. It's Middays from the Element Wealth Studio. Mike Murphy, Executive Director for the Committee for a Responsible Federal Budget, is our guest. So, Mike, before we went to break, was just discussing one of those proposals that the Democrats really love, which is the scrapping of the cap, which just means that all wages above the current cap of 170, I don't remember what it is for 2026. I know it gets adjusted almost on an annual basis, would be subject to Social Security taxes, Social Security withholdings from gross pay. That would certainly add revenue into the fund, but all the actuarial analysis I've seen, Mike, on that say, yeah, that helps. That may give it a few more years of life, but it's not a permanent solution. The only permanent solution I've seen that involves more revenue, not talking about any sort of adjustments to benefits or retirement age and so forth. But the only permanent solution I've seen that everybody seems to agree on is we need to increase both the employer and the employee rate by 2% or so, 2 percentage points on either side. That's a guaranteed additional stream of revenue that would shore up the program. What do you guys see and propose and advocate for?
So one of the things I would point listeners to that are interested in it, you can go on our website, crfb.org, and we have a tool there. It's called our Social Security Reformer. Now, what it has is it has a range of options, all sorts of things on both the revenues and the benefit side, and then shows you the percentage gap, Gerard, that it closes of the 75-year actuarial gap. So there's a range of ones. So I encourage people to check that out because there's lots of different options. And we at our organization don't advocate for a specific solution. We think there's a range of things you can do. But to dig in on some of the things you said. So to lift the cap on payroll taxes, and you're right, it's a little higher than $176,000 a year now, but that's pretty close.
Yeah.
And is often the proposal that's put forward to bring in revenue. And we believe an honest assessment of like the different options are something that brings in more revenue should be part of the solution. It might not be the only solution, but it can be part of it. But you're correct that the actuarial estimates on this, they vary depending on the design of it, but also none of them close the full gap. And the reason is a lot of times what people forget to kind of take into account there are two main things when thinking about this issue. Number one is, are you going to credit people benefits too? So if you want to lift the cap, the people above that, are you going to credit them the same benefits on that or not? And if you are, well, it doesn't actually help you as much.
Right.
But a lot of people argue maybe you shouldn't because they're wealthier people, they don't need Social Security. But if you do that, then you de-link its purpose and in what many people perceive as its fairness, that you pay into it and you get something back. Those are the issues that don't often get talked about when you hear that idea of raising the cap. We think something where you're getting more from a cap or adjusting that cap is likely to be on the table. Probably not completely lifting it because of some of the reasons I was just suggesting. But those are some issues there. There are plenty of other options too. Look, adjusting the retirement age is often controversial. But per what we were saying earlier, a lot of people that talk about policy ideas often put that forward because they see it as pretty much common sense. When life expectancy has gone up as much as it has, but you haven't really adjusted the retirement age to reflect that reality, that seems off to people, and therefore slowly raising the retirement age over several years and decades makes sense. And you can generate, obviously, actuarial benefit and savings from doing that. And you can do it in a way that carves out exceptions for people for certain jobs and people that may not be able to do that. So the retirement age, and then there are ways to adjust the benefit formula, Gerard, to make it more, quote, progressive. So right now it is progressive. The people from a percentage of replacement of your income, the higher income you are, you get a lower replacement from your benefits.
Yeah.
But you could adjust it more because we talk to a lot of people that are at the higher end of the income spectrum and they're saying, sure, you want to slow the growth of my benefits, not cut, slow the growth of them at the higher end of the income spectrum. They say, sure. So you combine some more revenue, adjust the age, make it a little bit more progressive on how they calculate benefits, and you can solve and secure Social Security permanently.
Yeah.
With a few other things. And that's kind of what.
Okay. Well, still, I would submit, Mike, that there's some pain that some people would endure as part of that, regardless, right?
Oh, absolutely. Let me put it bluntly. We're a kind of budget fiscal responsibility group. We're not that popular in Washington because what budget fiscal responsibility is about sacrifice in a lot of cases. It's about making tough choices and trade-offs. But politics is all about the giveaway side, Gerard, as you know.
Yes.
It's about what's the next thing we can promise as a new spending program, a new tax break. When you enact a new program, my Lord, is it obviously hard to ever adjust or take it away.
Witnessing that with the enhanced subsidies right now, right, Mike?
Yes, we are certainly witnessing that with the debate over the enhanced subsidies for the Affordable Care Act. So that's the reality. And yes, absolutely. When we have to deal with Social Security, there's going to have to be adjustments that someone it's going to impact. If there are going to be people that are impacted by bringing in more revenue, or people that might have to be adjusted in retirement age, et cetera. But also you have to remember that these things are kind of prospective, right? So a lot of this could be phased in over time, and those adjustments could be a lot smaller and spread out over time that people may not feel them or realize them much at all, frankly. They might be described as a cut, but in reality, they're just a cut relative to what otherwise is scheduled to happen 20 years from now.
Yeah.
But actually might be more than today.
Yeah.
Right? So those things are realities, but you are absolutely right. There's still going to have to be some sacrifice, and unfortunately, we have a political system that does not benefit those fiscally responsible trade-offs right now, which is why it's important that you're raising these kind of issues. That's what we say is we need to, it's quaint, but you need to get this message out there and have more people willing to press their elected leaders, for example, to say, don't tell me you're not going to touch Social Security. I know it's going insolvent in 7 years, and if you don't touch it, it's going to cut benefits by 24%. So what are you going to do? The more people that are doing that, I have to have hope maybe we can flip the political incentives here.
So, Mike, we have senators that are running for re-election or running for election in 2026, a year from now, that are going to witness this during their term when this happens.
Exactly.
I mean, you can't ignore it. You need to be talking about it in your platform right now, because a House member, they got to get elected 3 more times. I get that. But a member of the Senate, you're there for 6 years. This is going to happen during your term as a senator. You got to talk about it. You can't ignore it.
Despite what I said before about being lonely, a little downtrodden when it comes to fiscal responsibility group in Washington, you have to have hope. And one of the things that does give me hope is what you just said. They now cannot avoid this in their term. Once you start to get within someone's term in the electoral window, it starts to change the incentives. The people that are running for the Senate next year, as you absolutely are correct pointing out, they will be within their term in 6 years to have to deal with the insolvency of Social Security. And by the way, Medicare Part A is going insolvent the same year. And whoever runs for president in 2028, that will be within their term as well. So
that's right.
It is now a priority issue from a timing perspective, and therefore we got to try and make it as such.
So, Mike, one thing I didn't hear you mention, as we discussed earlier, that Social Security only has one investment option with its excess funds, and that's these S bonds. Last I checked, the average interest rate of those holdings is about 3.5%. That's obviously a lot lower than could be made in a fairly balanced portfolio in private securities. Mike, every state in the country's retirement system is able to invest in private securities. Is this not an option for Social Security?
So I think when they ultimately get around to dealing with Social Security, that there should be a discussion about going forward. What do we do differently than what happened over the last couple of decades when it comes to that surplus? So if we actually get to the point where we've reformed Social Security, we got on a sound path, we're creating maybe surpluses again in some years, is there a way we should be doing something differently with that? I think that's an open conversation and should be happening to avoid what happened before, which was what they did is they used it to paper over deficits and debt.
Yeah.
Where I get concerned about the investment ideas and some that get floated sometimes is what they don't take into account that we're already running a deficit in the program and potentially are going to be for a while, and they want to do is borrow more to fund some kind of investments to then make up the difference in the gap.
Oh, yeah.
To me, that seems like a little bit of a Ponzi scheme.
That's shell game. That's a shell game.
That's shell game stuff. That's shell game stuff to try to think that we're going to make up some investments to then fund the gap, as opposed to, you're really on point assessment a minute ago, as opposed to making the tough choices and sacrifices that are going to have to be made. Sometimes that's what happens when they talk about these investment ideas. But I think when they get around to actually solving it and you secure it with some of these other ideas, putting on the table, how do we avoid what you guys did before, which was you for years used the surplus to fund the rest of the government, as opposed to maybe there's something else more beneficial we could do with that surplus.
Get it. Mike, appreciate you coming on. Really enjoyed the conversation and the explanation and the insight. We're going to keep talking about it here for what that's worth. It's one of our favorite subjects, honestly, because we got to talk about it. Appreciate you, Mike. Thank you, man.
Love it. Thanks for having me on, Gerard.
You bet. You too, man. We're coming right back in the Element Wealth studio.
From the Seabrook. Whether you're grateful for freedom of speech or that last piece of pecan pie, happy Thanksgiving.
Happy Thanksgiving!
Almost time for turkey sandwiches.
Middays with Gerard on SuperTalk, Mississippi.
You can get anything you want at Alice's restaurant. You can get anything you want at Alice's restaurant. Walk right in, it's around the back, just a half a mile from the railroad track. You can get anything.
Welcome back, everyone. It's Middays from the Element Wealth Studio. Malcolm Reed, founder of How to BBQ Right, comes on at 12:05. Kicks off the third hour of Middays today on this day before Thanksgiving. Brandy in Starkville sent us an interesting little graphic there. It depicts Joe Biden in the kitchen wearing an apron, and he's holding a plate with a big cooked turkey on it, and below, in big writing, Happy 4th of July. Oh, man, he's just something. I kind of miss having him to laugh about some of the crazy stuff he'd say, the gaffes. I miss that part, not the rest of it. Let me be clear. Man, oh, man. On the C-Spire text line, just talking about this concept of taxing unrealized gains. You are not buying a stock. You are buying a slice of the company. Absolutely true. Good point. Well put. Let's see. Ben from Madison weighed in on us with us earlier, and I'm looking for that now. I can't find it there, but he said something, I think, about. He said,
I believe Cindy Hyde-Smith will win by a fairly comfortable margin, but I would advise her to run hard or don't run at all.
I got it. You're right.
The Dems are likely going to have momentum going into that race, and will that spill over into Mississippi? Probably not, but she should sprint through the finish line.
I absolutely believe that as well. Wow. So I don't get the impression, Rhino, that the Hyde-Smith campaign is taking this race lightly whatsoever. I don't get that impression. I see the senator active, traveling the state when she's here, and her campaign team is putting out information across the media and so including social media. But it's the same old tired proposals from the Democrats that Scott Colomb is promoting. Just got to take from this group and give it to that group. That's pretty much all they got that I can tell, honestly. And, of course, ignoring the fact that we already do that. That's the way our system works now. We were just talking to Mike about how progressive that is right now. You pay in a bunch into Social Security if you're at that cap every year, for example, and some people are. I mean, from the day they set foot into the workforce, they're at the cap, which means that all of their wages up to that cap are subject to Social Security, but it doesn't give you any more benefits. There are caps on benefits. So even if they lifted the cap on the amount you paid in, that was the point that Mike was making. And we've made that here before. Is that, okay, well, if you scrap the cap, are you scrapping the cap on the benefit side? Because if you're not achieving anything. But if you are, then that's blatant, hardcore redistribution. You're asking this group of people to pay a whole lot more in. But by the way, you're not getting any more out. You're paying for the people over here that didn't pay as much in. That's just the reality of it. We've kicked the dang can down the road so long that this is going to become a fire drill in a few years. They're not going to talk about it during this election cycle, but it's fair game if we have the honor of interviewing any of the candidates. Shouldn't we ask that question? What are your plans? This is going to happen while you're sitting in the U.S. Senate. What are your plans? And then, of course, in 28, it's going to become an issue again. And then you're starting to work your way into members of the House. What are your plans? Because you're going to be seated there when this thing is going broke. So these are legitimate questions. Honestly, I'd like to see the president invest a little more time into the issue and start talking about it and encouraging our Congress to make some proposals. As he is with respect to health care, we're expected to see a framework for the plan for health care. It's being reported in the next few days. They had one that he announced Monday, and then they rescinded it because Republicans in particular in the House said, yeah, if that includes extending the enhanced subsidies in the ACA marketplaces, Don't count on us to support that, Mr. President. So he pulled back on that. But I heard him in a sound clip this morning say, I don't want to do that, but I feel like we need to. And I think this was from yesterday. So I'm not sure what to expect in this kind of revised framework that we're expected to see coming out of the White House with respect to the ACA enhanced subsidies. Here at home, did you see this story, Rhino, about a plane that took off from one of the airports on the coast, a Cessna, I think it was a 172, and then crashed in Lake Pontchartrain?
Yeah, I saw the report on it. From what I remember, it was an instructional flight.
Yeah, it was an instructor involved, right. And a well-credentialed instructor, right, with 1,300 hours. And, I can attest, having taken flight lessons, those instructors are pretty good. Mine was fantastic. And, a stickler for doing things by the book, which I very much appreciated. Because you know what happens if you don't? You die. That's what happens. It's not like, oh, well, that's bad. No, you die if you don't do stuff right. And all too often, that's exactly what happens, and certainly in private pilot crash situations. But man,
I haven't seen an update. The update I saw was that the instructor and the student were missing. Right.
And I saw that as well. So no details, right, at this point. So, but just back to this issue, I wanted to talk about one more second, then we'll move on benefits for illegals in this country. We have some folks even in elected office in Mississippi saying that Mississippi should ban all taxpayer benefits for illegal immigrants. But what specifically? I don't think there are any Mississippi benefits for illegal immigrants. I mean, I support and agree that as well. But again, I'm going to say, if they show up in the ER in a hospital in Mississippi, they're going to get treatment. It's happening right now.
Halfway reasonable purpose to outlaw benefits is if you do have an instance of one that gets through the cracks and does get signed up for benefits, that there would be actual punishment for it instead of just loss of benefits.
I'm with you on that. But again, we already have law. We don't need any new laws to prevent illegals from getting benefits, just like we didn't have to pass any laws
but
to
the
shut
law,
the
if I'm
border
not mistaken,
down.
the law just says they're ineligible, not that they will be punished in any way if they are sneaking through the system.
Agree that I could certainly get on board with ratcheting up. And maybe that's just, you get deported and you can't ever come into the country. Maybe it's something as simple as that. So you think twice about scamming the system, right, to sign up for these benefits. But if they are receiving benefits because they're scamming the system, well, again, I got to point to the poorly designed ancient systems we have used to administer those programs, and, of course, the people that are administering them. It's on them. And I've said before, we need more sophisticated technology and modernization of our systems to be used in the administration process to prevent illegals from getting benefits. Now, honestly, as far as misuse of money, the amount that is scammed from these various programs, like SNAP, like Medicaid, like TANF, like housing assistance, like electric utility assistance, I'm just thinking out loud of the major assistance programs, the value of the scams perpetrated is considerably higher by American citizens than it is illegals. That doesn't get talked about. So I know it's popular to say, oh, yeah, ban the illegals. I'm with you. But why don't we really address the bigger problem, which is legal American citizens? How many times have people sent that in on our text line? People you know out in the public. I know so-and-so that's running around with a $500 purse and pulls her SNAP card out of it, right? You hear that all. That's a legal person, a citizen that's eligible for the benefits ostensibly, right? They're the ones that are scamming it. They're the ones that are costing us money. We should address that where it really is an issue, and that's Americans.
I mean, there are entirely legally legitimate uses of, say, Medicaid that would still be considered a waste of money. Like, for instance, if you take someone to the ER and the ER doctor writes you a prescription for Triaminic, then obviously you wasted the ER's resources. Because Triaminic is a children's medicine available over the counter.
Gotcha. And that does happen.
All the time.
I've heard that as well from ER physicians that have told me that. You're just wasting time and money and space. And honestly, getting in the way of getting to the people who legitimately need emergency care. Happens all the time.
But it's a legally legitimate way to receive care.
That's where we need help. We're coming right back in the Element Well studio.
Polyupa, Mississippi. Happy Thanksgiving from our family to yours. Middays with Gerard on SuperTalk Mississippi.
Wow, I feel good. I knew that I wouldn't. I feel good. I knew that I wouldn't. So good. So good. I got to use.
All you can see is Eddie Murphy portraying You're laughing.
Yeah, because I saw an AI a couple days ago of Eddie Murphy as Gumby as James Brown.
That's awesome. I'm Gumby, damn it.
Gumby dancing. It was great.
Oh, man.
AI has some useful ways to make you laugh as long as you recognize that it is AI.
For the good old days of Saturday Night Live, right? Yeah, no doubt. Well,
it's had a couple of periods of excellence, and it's had a few periods of what are they thinking?
On the C-Spire text line, that's so true. But, man, I sure do miss some of those days. You know, I think my favorite, it'd be a toss-up between Will Ferrell and I really like Phil Hartman, and what a tragic ending to his life he had. He could play those characters, just a smorgasbord of characters, so dang good. It just made me laugh so hard back in his days. And then I loved Dana Carvey's impersonations.
Oh, yeah.
You know, George Bush was one that I loved him doing. Not gonna do it. Remember that? He just had the mannerisms down.
Or
so
Ross
great.
Perot. Can I finish?
Ross Perot.
Can I finish? Can I finish? Can I finish?
Oh, gosh, it was so funny. On the C-Spire text line, Mr. GG, with all due respect, I like you a lot and respect your place in Ole Miss alumni. What do you think Lane Kiffin does next year? Hot sauce. I tell you, I just don't know. I can't figure it out, but I will say this just to illustrate how things are upside down with respect to college sports, really college football. Lane Kiffin's photo is on the front page of the Wall Street Journal today. And there's a link on the front page. This is usually how that's published. It's a teaser. See page 12. And the little teaser says, will Lane Kiffin be the highest paid coach in the history of college football? That's on the front page of the Wall Street Journal. Who'd have thunk? You'd see a college football coach. You know, right around the articles about NVIDIA and Google fighting it out in the chip world. Right next to that is Lane Kiffin. Unbelievable how that has evolved. And I'm not sure it's in a good way. It doesn't feel like intercollegiate athletics anymore, does it? Student athletes. It just doesn't feel like that anymore. It seems like that the innocence of, I'm just here going to school, trying to get a degree and play a little football at the same time. It just feels like that's been diminished.
Well, it's even more difficult to differentiate between professional athletics and collegiate athletics when the coaches of collegiate athletics are making the same or more than professional coaches.
Yeah, I agree.
Like, there was at one point in time, think back to the days of Nick Saban leaving college and going to coach in the pros, where that was a pretty sizable step up in coaching salary from the college ranks to the NFL ranks. And now, unless I'm mistaken on how much NFL coaches are making, you got some SEC coaches that are right up there or better paid than NFL coaches.
Yeah, I agree.
And that just, it's kind of on its head.
It's totally on its head. Now,
and then you add in the NIL and the paying of players and or student athletes and stuff like that, which I'm not against. I don't see how people can be against that from a standpoint of principles. I can see how people can be against it from what it's changed in the game. But the colleges were making a killing on these kids. Why can't they get a cut of it?
I get it. That's why I'm saying, why do we call them student athletes? Because I personally believe, and I've had this feeling for over a decade, that we're headed to total privatization of college athletics, specifically college football, because that's where all the big money is. And what I mean by that is I just envision a system, and I don't have all the details worked out and the nuances, but essentially the universities would outsource, franchise, if you will, to third-party private operators the entire program, every aspect of it. There would be no athletic department involvement except in negotiating the contract. And all the coaches, all the players, everybody else involved would be employees of that organization. And they would have an association, and they would, just like the NCAA is today, where they would establish all the rules and the policies. Same thing, except it'd be a private organization, similar to the way professional sports operates now. And they pay royalties, the way I kind of see it. Royalties back to the university. And I also see a situation where the athletes would not have the requirement of being students enrolled in school. They could just play sports and get paid. It's almost like that now, to a great extent, I think some would argue.
I just don't know that that's feasible across the board.
You mean in all sports?
No, just in football, like college football.
It may not be. Across the board, I agree. I think that's why a lot of universities would drop their program altogether. Coming right back after Fox News and SuperTalk News with Malcolm Reed, founder of How to BBQ Right.
And now, the talk that keeps Mississippi talking.
That's what I like to listen to.
You're listening to Middays with Gerard Gibert. Here on SuperTalk Mississippi.
Winter is here again, oh Lord. Haven't been home in a year or more. I hope she holds on a little longer.
Welcome back, everyone. It's hour 3, the afternoon portion of Middays from the Element Wealth Studio on this
Hump Day.
We welcome now Malcolm Reed, founder of How to BBQ Right. Hey, Malcolm, what's going on, man?
Oh, man, we are ready for Thanksgiving. Happy Thanksgiving, everybody.
Yes, sir. So what are we cooking for Thanksgiving?
Oh, we got to smoke a turkey and a ham. That's the number one, number two right there. Then I let my wife take care of all the sides. So
I got you. Smoking a turkey and a ham. Now I'm hungry, of course, after you mentioned that, because that's always a good way to prepare those delicacies for an enjoyable Thanksgiving. So what about throughout the holidays, Malcolm? Any particular food plans that you're thinking about or we should be thinking about?
Well, traditionally you got to have that turkey on Thanksgiving. I think that's what most of America's doing tomorrow, cooking turkey some kind of form or fashion. But man, I think you should already have that turkey in a brine, letting it get a good soak so it gets some moisture and some seasoning deep down in it, and then get ready to cook it in the morning. That's kind of the important part. And then in Mississippi, we've got the Egg Bowl, and it's funny how it seems like the whole nation's eyes are on what's going to happen at the Egg Bowl. Not so much the game, but the decision after it. So
that's exactly
that's
right.
What my weekend's shaping up like.
Got you. That's exactly right. So you're going to the Egg Bowl? You're going to be there in person?
No, I'm going to be at deer camp.
Okay.
I'm going to go to deer camp and try to see a deer in the morning on Friday, and then watch the Egg Bowl right around 11. So it's going to be a fun day. But
absolutely,
I'm going to get my belly full tomorrow.
I got you. That sounds great. So I saw something the other day, Malcolm, about turkey preparation. Said the number one mistake made by folks at home is they don't allow the bird to thaw out long enough and properly, and therefore you don't get the same result. What about that?
Yeah, that's exactly true. And I think the majority of the birds that we're used to cooking here come froze. And depending on the size of that bird, it takes multiple days.
Yeah.
If you're cooking a big 18 to 20 pound bird, it should have been out 5 to 6 days ago in the refrigerator, slow thawing. I like to cook the 12 pounders. I like that young turkey. I think it cooks really even. So I usually take those out about 3 days before I'm going to cook it, and that gives it time to thaw out. And once I can, get that ice out of the middle of the cavity, and then get down in a brine and give it another 24-hour soak, it really does well. So there's more preparation that goes into it. It's not over if you didn't get it speed thawed. There are ways that you can thaw it in water with changing that water out. It'll speed the process up some. But it's not recommended to leave it out on the counter to let it thaw. You really want to thaw it in a safe environment.
Yeah.
So that's a big thing of cooking turkey. And, turkey's a neutral flavor. It doesn't have a whole lot of its own flavor. So it can take on seasonings, brines, injections, all that really well. So even if you didn't brine it, you can still inject it to get some flavor deep down in it.
I got you. So and now that I think about it, I think it was the CEO of Butterball that was actually talking about that that's the number one issue. And this was like 3 or 4 days ago. He said, if you hadn't started the thawing out process, just like you said, 5-7 days, it's a little late, but he also suggested there are some things you can do to kind of catch up and overcome that. But I hadn't thought about that. So is it just the way the makeup of the meat, kind of the fiber of the meat itself, it just receives spices and injections, I guess, better than maybe some other types of meat?
That's the way it is. It naturally wants to soak them up. And like when you drop a turkey down in a brine, which a brine is a solution of some kind of liquid with salt and sugar and spices usually. Okay. So you can put whatever kind of flavors in there. And what happens, it's kind of a science reaction. I remember osmosis from biology school.
Yeah.
At school.
Sure.
It's like you've got this higher concentrations of flavors of salt and sugar and spices that want to equal out inside that turkey. And the meat's perfect for drawing it up and stabilizing it. And as it stabilizes, that's what leaves that moisture and that flavor inside your turkey. It makes it really juicy, and it makes it taste good.
I got you. All right, so you said your wife's handling the sides. Can you share what the sides at the Reed table look like on Thanksgiving?
Yes, sir. Well, we got to have dressing to go along with that turkey.
Sure.
So we're going to have turkey and dressing, and then she really makes a really good sweet potato dish. It's like that classic pecan praline topping on top of some oven roasted sweet potatoes, and then mac and cheese. And deviled eggs, and of course gravy, and then lima beans, and I could go on and just tell you what we're gonna have. And it's the one day where you can you're gonna have plenty good food to eat, and it's probably gonna last us all weekend long.
Man, we're so blessed, aren't we, in this country to be able to enjoy that bounty. And I saw that the price has declined a little bit, but still overall, it's not that expensive when you think of how many people you could feed a real well-heeled Thanksgiving meal to.
That's right, man. I know the grocery stores in our part of the state up north here have been packed. People are really going out. We had to make a run this morning to get some last-minute rolls and a few things, a few more blocks of cream cheese, all the stuff that's required for Thanksgiving.
Yeah, absolutely. So, as a matter of fact, I saw that the price of Sister Schubert rolls, which are very popular on Thanksgiving, they're down like 20% or something relative to last year.
Yeah, it's great to see that, man. I think, the economy's coming around. There's plenty of jobs out there. Everybody's working.
Yeah.
If you watch all the media, sometimes it doesn't look like that. But when you go out in the towns and stuff, it's kind of a different story. So I tell people to get out there and experience it for yourself, man.
Yeah.
See what's really going on in your communities.
Okay, so you mentioned, and naturally we think about that in the South, that stuffing to be the first accompaniment to a turkey dinner. But up in the northern part of the country, that's not popular is it stuffing as part of the trimmings?
So I think they do. We do the dressing down here, and they'll do the stuffing in the burger.
Okay, I got you.
That's just something that we don't do a lot of. I mean, when I stuff a turkey, I think of using like root vegetables, aromatics, citrus fruit, things like that, apples, things that give it mass on the inside, but it's not something that you really eat. Like, we don't eat that stuffing that we put in it. Now they do a version of a cornbread stuffing up north,
right?
But it's usually different than what I grew up on, what my grandmother and granny made. That's real Southern dressing.
Okay, so Malcolm, my family is originally from New Orleans before they moved to Mississippi, and my father Italian, and my mother learned the Italian recipes from his mother, and so you're probably familiar with this, but it's Progresso Italian breadcrumbs is what they use traditionally in New Orleans to make the dressing, and my mother carried that on, and it's different than the cornbread dressing.
I've had now, when we talk New Orleans cooking, man, there's so much good variety down there and so many different things that are staples. And you're exactly right. That's a staple. And the rice dressing that a lot of people make down in Louisiana is fantastic too. And that's something you see at Thanksgiving a lot. In fact, I have a sister-in-law that they bring it every year. We're gonna have Louisiana style rice dressing. Usually has a sausage or something in it, which is a little different.
Yeah, exactly. And then the other thing that I think my mother used to make, I know my mother used to make for the holidays is, I hope I pronounce it correctly, the Militon. I think it's spelled Mirliton, but it was always pronounced Militon, like the R is kind of silent. Are you familiar with that? Looks like a...
No, that's a new one. Go ahead and describe it.
Yeah, it's a vegetable, I think, that's about the size of an avocado, and instead of stuffing like a big bell pepper, for example, you cut it in half and you stuff that either Italian dressing type or the rice dressing is what you were talking about. My mother used to stuffed militons. That was also
when we get off this,
Gerard,
I'm going to go
man.
check that out because that might be a video that I need to do. That would be a good one.
I literally just looked it up while we're sitting here, and it's from NOLA Cuisine, shrimp stuffed militons. So there you go. Oh. And then there's Uncle Tim's stuffed militons from Rouse's Supermarket that includes Louisiana crawfish tails in it. How about that?
Yeah, we love Rouse's, man. That's a great.
Isn't that great?
That's a great chain of grocery down there.
We need them here, don't we?
Yes, we do. I would love to see some Rouse's up this far north.
Now, when I was growing up, it was customary for us to visit the Schwegmans in New Orleans when we were headed out of town, right?
I've heard of Schwegmans, yeah.
Gigantic, man, grocery store with a huge liquor department, as they do in Louisiana, right there in the grocery store itself. Yeah, just really cool. So, man, we appreciate you coming on, Malcolm. Now you got me hungry thinking about Thanksgiving. And
yes, sir. Let's get those birds ready for the oven. Hope everybody has a wonderful holiday. Enjoy the time with your family and friends. And, man, happy Thanksgiving, Gerard.
Also, Malcolm, wanted to express our appreciation to you for your partnership with the Palmer Home and Giving Tuesday coming up next week. Really appreciate that, man. Thank you.
That's exactly right, man. We always 100% support the Palmer Home, and if it wasn't for SuperTalk, I wouldn't be a part of it. So
that's awesome.
I'm glad to be able to do that, man.
That's awesome. Malcolm Reed, everyone, How to BBQ Right. We're coming right back in the Element Wealth studio.
Hey, this is Bob, and if you're
grateful for freedom of speech or that last piece of pecan pie, happy Thanksgiving.
Happy Thanksgiving!
Almost time for turkey sandwiches.
Middays with Gerard on SuperTalk, Mississippi.
Welcome back, my friends, to the show that never ends. We're so glad you could attend. Come inside, come inside. There behind the glass stands a real blade of grass. Be careful as you pass. Move along, move along. Come inside, the show's about to start. Guaranteed to blow your head apart. Rest assured, you'll get your money's worth. Greatest show in heaven, hell, and the oxy show. It's a dynamo. You gotta see the show.
Welcome back, everyone. It's middays from the Element Well studio. So on the break there, just did a little bit of research on this Militon vegetable. It's also commonly known as a vegetable pear. Kind of looks like it. And it's a name for, I don't know if I'm going to pronounce this right, coyote or coyote squash?
Chayote.
Coyote.
Chayote.
Coyote. C-H.
Chayote.
Chai. Okay. So not the hard, but the soft C, right?
Some pronounce it sayote, but it's chayote.
Okay. C-H-A-Y-O-T-E. Always been referred to as militons in my days of growing up in my household. And it is a common delicacy in New Orleans, stuffed militons. And my mother, man, unbelievable at preparing those with sometimes the shrimp stuffing, as we talked about, sometimes just the dressing, the Italian breadcrumbs-based dressing. Ooh, really good. And then the crawfish tails dressing, and I'm not why I don't know if the Militon added something flavor-wise, because you would bake them, as I recall. You'd stuff it into the half-cut Militon, put the stuffing in that, kind of held it like a bowl, and then she'd bake it.
From what I understand, it's called a vegetable pear because it's very similar in texture to a pear, but it's not as sweet. So it lends itself to more savory dishes than sweet dishes.
Okay. I think it did have, a little juice that it would emit as part of the baking process that I think would filter into it. It had that kind of little taste to it, similar to that of a zucchini. So, okay. Wow. And not in a million years would I thought I'd point out a food product that Malcolm Reed didn't know, and I bet he's looking it up right now. That's pretty cool. But again, my parents brought that from their native New Orleans and grew up on that. Kind of neat. We also have a delicacy at my house still today because my wife learned how to do it from, I believe, my mother before she passed away, and that's stuffed artichokes stuffed with Italian breadcrumb type dressing stuffed into the leaves. I mean, into the individual leaves. It's a very tedious process to prepare the stuffed artichokes. And then my mother would cook them in a pressure cooker for quite some time. And then serve that on the table. Stuffed artichokes, which are a common delicacy in New Orleans. So a lot of folks eat artichokes, just eat the leaves, maybe dip them in some sort of lemon juice or butter or something like that. But yeah, it's in my house. It's you stuff the leaves and you scrape it. I had to teach people that come over how to eat them. You pull the leaves, put them in your mouth, and scrape it on your teeth because you're supposed to get a little of the leaf as part of that. The meat on the leaf itself is part of that stuffing. Really, really good, by the way. So, and that's something that keeps a few days. So we eat it on Thanksgiving and Christmas. And then for several days after, that's what I warm up the microwave and eat. So just digressing a bit because it's Thanksgiving and it's the holidays and we talk about eating. Pretty cool. Mo says, if we made telehealth more available, we could cut down on emergency room traffic. And Mo's, it is available in a lot of areas and from a lot of emergency services hospital providers. The challenge is we don't quite have ubiquitous connectivity and availability, and of course, it doesn't work for everything. You can't have a baby through telehealth, for example, and you can't address a heart attack. But to your point, you can't address some of these more benign ailments that flow into the dang ERs and sit there for hours often waiting and then use an exam room.
Which makes me wonder why nobody working in hospitals has thought to just put a kiosk in the ER that's a telehealth kiosk for people in the ER to where either the nurse can go, all right, go talk to the kiosk, and if they think you need help, come on back. Or, heck, just to start some sort of procedures while you're just sitting there waiting.
I
mean, yeah, you may
agree.
be slammed in that ER, but there may be another doctor that could connect via telemedicine to help out.
I agree. That's a good point. It just remains to be seen how much of the population in the emergency room would be willing to do that. I agree with you. I think it's a great idea. And I think as time progresses and the people that are going to be in the ERs as they age, they've been around digital systems their whole life. It wouldn't intimidate them, right? Today, maybe a little more difficult. By the way, Representative Hank Zuber, of course, from down there in Jackson County on the coast says, both of my parents are from Louisiana. Also, I grew up eating stuffed Militons and with oyster dressing. He said we also had Militons stuffed with a shrimp dressing. So appreciate you letting me know that, Hank. It's good, man. I agree. And I don't know that that's anything folks in Mississippi are aware of, but of course New Orleans is a melting pot of food and one of the great food cities in the world, honestly. And it is a delicacy, just like the stuffed artichokes with the Italian breadcrumb dressing. Pretty cool. Thomas in Greenwoods, 95% of ER visits are for non-emergencies. You have some data to back that up, Thomas? Some reports? I'm not saying you're wrong, but there's a lot of people that could have an ailment that think that it's emergent, that's ultimately determined not to be. Heck, I could probably venture a guess that a lot of people listening to this program have had such false alarms. But out of an abundance of caution.
The listeners to this program have a runny nose or a sore throat. They know that if they go to the ER, they'll be paying through the nose. Whereas if you're on Medicaid, you go to the ER, you're not going to have to pay much of anything.
Totally true.
Because there's no skin in the game, they'll just waste the resources.
And Thomas says, so if the treatment can be handled via telehealth, it should be denied. I think that's an extremely slippery slope. But because you make the wrong call, and the family owns the hospital before it's all over with. I mean, that's so, I don't know, it's a tough one. I'm not saying it's a bad idea, but let's be honest. Lawyers cause doctors to be more risk-averse and to over-doctor. We have a litigious society, and there's lawyers waiting around to pounce on that, especially knowing that doctors, providers, hospitals, and so forth have money. So it's rule of suing other parties is sue somebody's got money. Don't sue somebody that's broke. So, okay, so Thomas just says, yeah, I have an RN and an MP in the family, both work in the ER. Okay, so that's anecdotal evidence. And I'm not saying you're wrong, but I've also been in the ER before. My wife had to take her a couple of times for kidney stones. You can't predict when those crop up, and sometimes the pain gets to the point where it is unbearable. You got to go take care of it. You can't, we'll make an appointment, see you in a week to blast the stone out of there. And sometimes you can pass it. But as you know, sometimes it gets lodged and you're doubled over in major pain. And you got to go take care of it. So Chris from Meridian says, Italian breadcrumbs and Parmesan cheese. Yes, and that's exactly what the stuffing's made of. I agree. It's awesome, isn't it? Justin Wilson put the R in Merlaton. I think he did. He, of course, maybe the most famous Cajun of all time. Also a great cook, chef, had television shows where he would dish up some of the old Cajun delicacies. Yeah, that was good. And, of course, was also a comedian and I think a musician. Very talented. I think my mother had all of his albums, as I recall. I used to play those. It kind of reminded her of home. Justin Wilson.
He was the I guarantee guy.
I guarantee. I always think of JT and his grandmother's oyster dressing, says Dave from Ripley. Absolutely. Don't they do oyster dressing in Louisiana? Yeah, they get creative, and there are different forms of dressing. I would say for the most part, however, in Mississippi, it's pretty much cornbread-based dressing. I don't know that it varies a whole lot. I'm sure there's some differences in the recipes, but in Louisiana, right, there are variances of the dressing, and oyster dressing is absolutely one of those, yeah. Not usually cornbread in the Northeast, just bread. Yeah, that makes sense. Cornbread's kind of a Southern delicacy. I think it's fair to say. Let's see here. Thanks for your response. Have a great Thanksgiving, says Hot Sauce. That's on the C Spire text line. That's all about what I think Lane Kiffin's going to do. I don't know. All I know, it was on the front of Wall Street Journal today. Coming right back.
From the Seabrook. Happy Thanksgiving from our family to yours. Middays with Gerard on SuperTalk Mississippi.
Who draws the crowd and plays so loud, baby? It's the guitar man. Who's gonna steal the show? You know, baby, it's the guitar man. He can make you love, he can make you cry. He will bring you down.
We're back with you in the Element Well studio on the C Spire text line. Stephen Batesville says, I was at the ER in Oxford for an hour and they charged my insurance $5,900. Unreal. Man, you got off light.
But that's what I was talking about, where if you pay for your own insurance, you're not going to the ER for the sniffles because you know it's going to cost you an arm and a leg.
Yeah. It's
whereas if you're living off the government teat,
yep,
you're going to show up for any little thing.
It's just a messed up system, man. Just a messed up system in a big way. Sure is. Randy in Starkville says, at the end of the Egg Bowl, Kiffin will take the team into the locker room, emerge a few minutes later inside a giant paper machete turkey. A mache turkey. It stops at midfield and he pops out and says, I'm going to Bama. I'm not sure. Really, I'm not. I have Melatonin rice dressing for Thanksgiving on the 228 C Spire text line. Deviled eggs. Tangy or sweet? I prefer tangy. Let's see what wins. Have to think about that. Mike and Simpson.
Go with tangy.
Yeah, I think so. Mike and Simpson County, lots to be thankful for this year. My second granddaughter was born last week, and I got engaged. Hope y'all have a great Thanksgiving, fellas. You too, Mike. Appreciate you letting us know that, man. Congratulations. That is awesome. And Alan in the Delta says he's looked up the stuffed Melitons. He's going to try it this weekend with shrimp stuffing. Cool. Justin Wilson was also in the police academy in Baton Rouge, Louisiana. He was one of my dad's trainers. How about that? Wasn't aware. What? I thought Obamacare fixed everything. Yeah, ain't that a lie? No, some would rather sit and wait than complain about the waiting the whole time, talking about the ER. Yeah, that's true. It will work on avocado hand. A lot of that in California. Absolutely.
Talking about telehealth.
Yeah, I got you. Avocado land, I guess. I don't know.
No, avocado hand. It's a name given to the injury sustained when people slice through an avocado and
Gotcha.
wind up slicing the palm of their hand.
Gotcha. I've come close to doing that myself many times.
Because they've seen the fancy chefs on the TV when they cut the avocado open and you got the pit sitting there, they just whack it with the knife. It embeds itself enough to pull the pit out. But if you get a little too eager, it goes straight through.
Yeah, absolutely.
Or if you miss.
Yeah, bizarre. Totally.
But that does bring up the it's kind of counterintuitive to think about it this way, but a dull knife is more dangerous than a sharp knife in the kitchen.
Yeah.
Because
makes
a dull
sense.
knife, you're having to impart more force on the knife, which means there's more force behind it if you mess up.
I think that's right. I watched Justin Wilson on PBS when I was a kid. Him and Martin Yan Can Cook. Martin Yan. Yeah, on Yan Can Cook. Got it. Yep. He's really good. I'm pretty sure the best being thankful I've ever seen on social media was thankful Kamala was not elected. Somebody said they wish the Pilgrims would have found a 1,200-pound steer instead of a turkey, says Chad in Van Cleve. Amen. Happy Thanksgiving to you all. Yeah, I'd kind of prefer that as well, little beef to the turkey. Old-fashioned butter roll pie, Old Delta Delight on the C Spire text line from the 662. Looking forward to it, but certainly I would have to say in the state of Mississippi, a lot of the eyes are going to be focused on not so much the Egg Bowl. There will be, of course, those that are interested in that annual end-of-the-year football contest, but the fate of one Lane Kiffin, I don't know, man. I just don't. No, I don't know what to expect. It could go either way, and I wouldn't be surprised either way. Totally. The tariffs are something that are also being discussed quite a bit as well, and they're having kind of an interesting effect on unemployment and inflation, according to a recent Fed analysis. The Federal Reserve Bank of San Francisco looked at the impact, finds that the effect of import taxes on inflation and unemployment vary over time. One of their senior policy advisors said, quote, tariffs can affect supply chains, investment, and firms' output costs, resulting in supply side effects such as higher inflation and higher unemployment. However, tariffs can also affect spending, the demand side of the economy. Weaker demand translates to higher unemployment, but lower inflation. Totally agree with that. That's kind of a time-tested principle of demand and supply economics. I do think that a lot of importers stocked up on goods before the tariffs went into effect, and now those supplies have been largely depleted, and so I think we're set to see a more true impact of tariffs as a result, because a lot of that really hasn't made its way into the economy at the retail cash register. So we'll see. Of course, the president a couple of weeks ago repealed a number of tariffs on lots of different food items, and so that was welcome news, because many of those products are not produced in the United States, and so I'm not sure what value there is to placing tariffs on those. And I think the president saw that. It drove price increases on many of those products. Bananas, one of them. And these are just products that we don't, agricultural products we don't produce here. The vice president is visiting the troops at Fort Campbell ahead of Thanksgiving. And we shall see, I'm sure, some reports on that. And then you've also got the Senator Mark Kelly from Arizona. He's got a little trouble going on for him.
The seditious six.
Man, oh man, go out and record this video encouraging members of the U.S. military to defy the commander-in-chief.
And then when pressed on, well, what illegal orders have been issued, they can't come up with any.
Right. Exactly. So,
and then Mark Kelly, bragging about his service, posted the picture of his medals on his uniform and got corrected by the Secretary of War on his medal placement.
Yeah.
Got some of the rows mixed up.
I saw that. But
it's been quite the entertaining time on social media, watching global war on terror and even pre-9/11 vets just having a field day pointing out Mark Kelly's shortcomings.
Yeah. The Arizona senator who, let's see, did he succeed his wife, or was his wife in the House? And then he ran for Senate. He took Kirsten Gillibrand's seat, right? She was I believe, the previous office holder for that U.S. Senate seat in Arizona. Is that right? I think that's the case.
He was preceded by Martha McSally.
Oh, okay. So the other seat. Who took Gillibrand? She was not Gillibrand. Kirsten Sinema is the one I'm thinking about that went independent and was stood with Joe Manchin, was a Democrat, went independent, stood with Joe Manchin against ending the filibuster during the Biden tenure.
Ruben Gallego.
Okay, that's right. Exactly. Thank you. So,
and Gabby Giffords did serve in the House.
Okay, that's Mark Kelly's wife. She, of course, known for being targeted by a gunman at a movie theater, right, in Arizona a few years ago, and that really stimulated the discussion around gun control in a big sort of way. I think she's fully recovered, as I recall. Kelly, former astronaut, right, and member of the Navy, officer in the Navy, and there's some talk that they're reviewing whether or not he could be court-martialed for his sedition. That would be interesting to see. Up there in Tennessee, interesting, there's a race for a congressional seat between GOP nominee Matt Van Epps, Democrat Afton Ben, known as the AOC of Tennessee, in a congressional district that overwhelmingly voted for President Trump. The race is kind of in question. Special elections, of course, are always weird and they're very unpredictable. But the far-left socialist, Ben, seems to be doing pretty well, maybe even showing as in the lead in that race. This is really incredible. It's just further evidence that the 20 and 30-somethings in this country seem to be embracing socialism. Final segment next.
Cool. From the governor's mansion to your Thanksgiving table, we've got the stories worth discussing. Back to Middays with Gerard on SuperTalk, Mississippi.
Yeah, man, it's the day before Thanksgiving. Hope you got great plans to be with family and enjoy some food. I know a lot of folks be in the woods hunting, something that is widely enjoyed here in the state of Mississippi. I think that's what my son's plan is. And I'll be headed up to the Egg Bowl. Looking forward to that. That's an 11 o'clock game on Friday. Looks like it's going to be a little chilly, kind of like it is today, but don't see any rain at this point in the forecast. So that's always good to see and know. But this political battle going on in Tennessee is of concern. That someone as far left as this candidate is, this Democrat candidate, Afton is her name, her first name, A-F-T-Y-N.
She's a piece of work.
I know, man. It's just really bothersome. Ben, B-E-H-N, her last name.
It's come out with audio from a podcast from a few years ago that she basically hates Nashville, hates the bridal showers, hates the pedal taverns, hates everything about it. And there was a video that came out of her being drugged, kicking and screaming out of somebody's office because she was in there showing her rear.
Hates the police. Don't forget that. So, yeah.
She's a poster child for the stupidity of the Democratic Party.
It really is something that this person could even have a chance. But there are a lot of especially young people. A recent Gallup poll, 66% of Democrats have a positive view of socialism. So let's be honest, the bandage is off. They're not even trying to conceal it any longer. This is what they support. This is who they are. I'm still a little upset, though. I don't want to second guess the president on his strategy of his handling of that meeting with Zoran Mondami, but it's his base that's madder than the Trump supporting base is, of how he got chummy with the president. And you can't do that with him. We hate him, right? He's the devil.
It's because liberals are the ones that will cut off all contact with friends and family that disagree with them.
That's so
While
true.
Republicans will just not talk politics.
Agree.
Because liberals, in the year of our Lord 2025, are the mental equivalent of a 13-year-old girl.
Totally true.
Across the board.
Yeah. That's insane when you think about. So Clay Travis, he lives in the district up there on his radio show. He was talking about the support for this far-left loon, Afton Ben, running for Congress. He says there are a lot of white 20 and 30-something humanities graduates out there who think they're part of the intellectual upper class but have $200,000 in student loan debt and can't even dream of buying a home. They're not wrong to think the system is rigged against them. They're just wrong to think socialism can save them. And I may take a little bit of different view than Mr. Travis does. I'm not sure what is rigged that's preventing these people, other than I guess you could say, well, there's no demand for your Humanities Council degree. You may consider that to be rigged. No, that's just the market speaking up. Nobody wants what you can do, if that's anything, honestly. You have a degree and that's about it. But you decided to, shall we say, take the easy way out. You decided to study something you may have enjoyed studying. It's just that there's no end game. There's no value to that. You didn't acquire any skills as part of that educational process that makes you marketable for a job that can pay back a $200,000 loan and
That's
buy
why
a
there's
house.
not a show on this network with me just sitting here for an hour talking about anime and movies and soccer, because it wouldn't sell.
It's what you like to talk
But it's
about.
what I love
It's
to
a
talk
subject
about.
matter. Sure, I agree. But the market dictates that. I just don't know why that's so hard for these nutcases to
But
understand.
I want it my way, is the way the liberals think.
Outside Design said, I believe Rhino just insulted my 13-year-old daughter.
No, I'm just
Laugh
saying
out
that
loud.
at the age of 13 years old, I've been around, now having been around the Wonder Nieces at that age, there is a mindset that changes at about that age in girls where...
It's true.
It's just, their priorities are strange to the male mind.
It's true. I agree. Well, man, oh man, we're going to continue to track that. I don't know what kind of chance that loon has of winning. I hope none, honestly, because I don't think she'd be good for that district. Certainly don't want to see her in the United States House of Representatives. We are out of here today. I hope you have a fantastic Thanksgiving holiday. Enjoy it with your family and give thanks to God above for all we have. Stay safe and God bless everyone.
A SuperTalk Mississippi media production.